This is not the Church of Latter-day Saints of Joseph Smith. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
Travis Mangazel. So apparently this weekend, Mormons are out partying and staying off YouTube because my views tanked. As I have talked about, I've been watching NCIS, and the pilot episode had Kate working for Secret Service, protecting President George W. Bush, or is it Herbert Walker Bush? I think it's Herbert Walker Bush Jr. Not Junior, but Junior. And she reveals that she had a boyfriend, but she was cheating on the boyfriend with another guy who dies. And then she becomes a member of NCIS, and working with Tony, she's all extremist Catholic. Very anti-sexuality. And so the episode I just finished watching was where Tony goes to Panama for spring break and finds that Kate had been involved in a wet t-shirt contest. And comedy will ensue. And that's usually how it is that a person who feels shame for what they've done tend to publicly go to the extreme of denial or condemning of such activity. It's a form of beam and moat in which a person knows they are guilty, but then accuse others of what they know they are guilty of. It's, I don't know, kind of stupid, I think. But it's a common human trait I've noticed over my decades. And especially in Mormonism. Mormons tend to go to the extreme as those who are caught drinking Mountain Dew or saying damn or hell or looking at a woman at the checkout counter, woman's health. They think they've committed sin. And so they go to the extreme, banning all caffeinated drinks at BYU, and forcing the grocery stores to ban women's magazines as porn. The test for porn was given to us by Elder Holland, in which he says, pornography will kill you. So that's the test. Look at pictures of women, and if you don't die, it's not porn. Good times. I had a Mormon who was excommunicated from the church, as he told me in a comment, that he thinks that I'm a quack. That's a psychological term which he has used as abusive. And this is what white supremacists, for the most part, have been responsible of doing. Is that back in the 80s, the psychologists had what's called mental retardation. And it's a scientific term, as they claim. At least scientific wording. There is no such thing as scientific retardation. Just like there's no such thing as mental illness. But that's what people who are bullies take from psychologists. Is that they go around and calling people retards. They go around calling people mental, etc., etc. And here, an ex-Mormon calls me a quack. He is using the abuse of a fallacious field called psychology to bully me as psychologists bully him and all of us. And he was trying to claim that despite him being excommunicated, that my criticisms of the church are unfounded. Especially when you guys who pay attention to multiple videos of mine, you've recently seen documentation too. And I can count the two of you on one hand. Mormons run away when evidence is shown. But this is concerning because ex-Mormons like him are more prone to want to come back to church if they can resolve their problem. If they can stop drinking Mountain Dew, and if they can only ban women's health porn in the grocery stores, then they can go back to church because the problem's gone. It's out of sight, out of mind. He can turn it off. Oh my God, there's so many problems. When you have an incorrect interpretation of Scripture, it leads to a changing of morality. And so, yeah, whoso looketh upon a woman to lust after her denied the spirit of faith and blah, 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 and go blind and die. You misinterpreted that Scripture because you're using white supremacist Christian nationalism to interpret the learning of the Jews. Not just with your hatred of women, demanding that they have the baby for which they were raped by. The overturning of Roe v. Wade by the supremacist court justice. And so in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, and there are lots of Christians who love to focus on that, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek." But in verse 14, he includes barbarians. And so, Mormons, I show you the evidence. I show you the passages in Scripture. And you deny. You refuse to believe. You run and hide. You put a thumbs down and run. 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2. Yea, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews. Even Romans knew to separate the Jews as distinctive and the language of the Egyptians. And I know it's tough because you don't know Egyptian, you don't even know Hebrew. But when you come across Joseph Smith telling you that our Christ is to be found in the record of the Jews, it's Joseph Smith History, verse 40. He quoted also the 3rd chapter of Acts, 22nd, 23rd verses, precisely as they stand in our New Testament. He said that that prophet was Christ. And so you go to it. For Moses truly said unto the fathers, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren, like unto me. Now, where is this found? It's found in Deuteronomy, which the Jews call their law. This is their Christ. Deuteronomy 18, starting in verse 15. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me. So there's the linguistic pattern. Raise up man like Moses. He's the Christ in the learning of the Jews. So when the Book of Mormon says it's in the learning of the Jews concerning our Christ, why are you putting Jesus? And so what the church is trying to cover up is in section 107, verse 91. This is Joseph Smith speaking. Joseph Smith is the president of the church. And again, the duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood is to preside over the whole church. It's Joseph Smith. And to be like unto Moses. Joseph Smith is not Jesus. He's a regular human parents. And he just dropped the bomb. He's a Christ. But wait, there's a footnote to Moses. Section 103, verse 16. Talking about the redemption of Zion in the latter days. Therefore, I will raise up. Unto my people. It's Joseph speaking here, who's the Christ of Mormons. Joseph. And who's he saying? My people, Mormons. A man who shall lead them like as Moses. And so, if you actually went to the Joseph Smith papers, you would learn that there's a whole bunch of errors. That somebody, after Joseph Smith was murdered, went around and made editing changes to Joseph Smith's documents. For example, Joseph Smith history. Owing to the many reports which have been put in circulation. By who? It was the missionaries' job to put in circulation the reports about the Book of Mormon. That was their job back then. In the learning of the Jews by evil disposed and designing persons. The missionaries? But Brigham Young was one of the missionaries. Oh. In relation to the rise and progress of the Church of, is it Jesus Christ? Is that the learning of the Jews Christ? And the Joseph Smith papers tells us Willard Richards added it after Joseph died. Because this was put in the Times and Seasons. That's how another Richards, who was the president in England, brought it back, and under John Taylor it became the Pearl of Great Price. The name of Joseph's church was the Church of Latter-day Saints since 1834. It's in the Joseph Smith papers. And yet, Willard Richards reveals that he is the evil-disposed and designing person in relation to the rise and progress of and that might have been a little complicated for you. But it's very plain and precious. And so are you Mormons ashamed of the learning of the Jews' gospel of Joseph Smith, our Christ, so that you refuse to look for your latter-day Christ? Because Joseph Smith warned you to hearken to him, that if you run and hide, you do so at your own peril. Joseph Smith warns you you're going to be held captive in an evil-disposed and designing great and abominable church. And stay away from verse 19, because then you'll learn who the abominable Christ is. I was answered that I must join none of them, for they were all wrong. So we're not supposed to be Christian. And the personage who addressed me said that all their creeds were an abomination. The great and abominable church is the Church of Jesus Christ. Joseph Smith gave us the answers. Or did you have a stumbling block placed over your brain because of the great and abominable church? That's what happened to me. But at least I was like, that's not what the scriptures say. And we didn't have Google search back then, so I had no idea what a creed was. I only knew about Apollo Creed. Creed 3 was awesome. simple. So the question is, why are you running and hiding, Mormons? Why are you allowing the church to deceive you, to abuse you, to scam you out of your money, to lead you as lambs to the slaughter this year? See, in 2020, that was the Exodus. Did you not pay attention to the events of the Exodus and compare them to 2020's events? All the signs in the heavens which you've refused to acknowledge since nothing happened for 21st of August 2017? It was just something cool that you found out at the last second and school kids were participating in the event. See, I'd been telling my ward back then about it ever since I found out about it in November 4th, 2016, Fox 13 News, Utah. And I had the Stellarium program. And yet, the Mormons in my own ward thought I was a quack. They thought I was ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Oh, beam and moat. So yeah, the more extreme you get, Mormons, the more it's clear you know you're in the wrong. So just feel free, women, to send me the bikini photos or wet t-shirt photos from Panama. Come out of the closet and let me see. I promise I won't go blind or die.